Hi, this is episode 11 of Crondos. I'm your host, Jordan Hudgens. I'm a Ruby dev and the CTO of the DevCamp platform. On Mondays, I like to take a complex computer science and software development problem and talk about a real-world way of understanding it. And today, I'm going to talk about the Model View Controller design pattern, also known as MVC architecture. While the MVC design pattern is used by some of the most popular web frameworks out there, it still can be confusing, especially if you're a new developer. At its core, the Model View Controller architecture is a way to give structure to application frameworks. It lets you logically organize your code, and it also makes it so it's easier to understand for other developers. Like other topics, I think the best way of understanding the Model View Controller design pattern is to break it into individual pieces, analyze each component, what its role is, and then put it all together and see how they all work together to create a design framework. Starting off with the model component, this is where the application data resides. For example, if you have an invoicing application, the model files will store items such as the attributes for invoices, custom methods such as how an invoice relates to the rest of the application, along with other features such as database query scopes. The model should only be called by the controller and shouldn't have any interaction with the view. Controller files manage data flow for the application. They take in requests from the routing engine and coordinates how the rest of the application processes that request. For example, in a sample invoicing application, if you go to a page where you can create a new invoice, the controller would register that request, pick out what view should be rendered, and call the model for any data that is needed for the page. In a well-written application, controller files should not contain very much complex logic. Views should be the most straightforward component in an application. The view should simply render the template and display any data passed to it by the controller. It should not have any direct communication with the model. Instead, it should only communicate with the controller. A few months ago, I was hired to write some Rails curriculum for the Learn.co platform, and they had a great way of explaining how the whole Model View Controller design pattern works in a real-world example. Imagine the MVC architecture as a restaurant. The model is the chef. The chef's role is to get orders from the waiter and make the meals. The waiter is the controller. They take requests from the customer, informs the chef, and brings back the meal to the customer. Lastly, the view is the table. It simply holds the meal. It doesn't do any type of complex task besides simply being there. So why is the Model View Controller design pattern so important, and why is it used by so many different frameworks? The main reason is because it lets you go from one project to another one and have already a semblance of how the code should be structured. If you started building applications just from scratch each time, you wouldn't really know the best place to put your data layer or how the controller should interact with the views. And even if you understood it, any other developers that started working on that project would be completely lost. By using the MVC architecture, new developers that come on and work on a pre-existing or legacy project will be able to know right away where all of the key elements of the project reside. I hope you now have a more clear idea on how the Model View Controller design pattern works and how you can implement it in your own applications.